crazy. Hey, welcome back to DeLorean Tech. I was just checking out my new KISS Ace Frehley Hot Wheels DeLorean. This is pretty cool, check that out. Ain't that sick or what? Anyway, speaking of KISS, in our continuing coverage of DCS 2023, our next guest speaker needs no introduction. He's actually a really good friend of mine and a fellow DeLorean owner from Germany. So without further ado, on to the video.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex. I'm here from Germany, and just, especially looking here at the DeLorean events in the States, the ones in Germany look a little bit different. That's my car with one of the, attendees. So, no, I wrote a book about DeLorean, and it came out like 2 years ago, and it's called Looking Inside. And since I wasn't there at the factory or anything, because I was just like a little kid at the point, I thought it was important to do a book where the story is told by the actual documents from the company and the images. Because like a lot of times when you read books and you see the guy wasn't even alive when the book was written, it's like, how did he get the information? I never wanted to write about something where I wasn't there, because that's just like, in my opinion, it's fake. So I thought like, okay, we have the documents, and then I was talking with Barrie Wills, and we talked about all the stuff and then wrote everything down, because I thought it was more important, especially when you look at a lot of those documentaries on Netflix or like some of the movies that were made, where like stories just don't add up. Like there was the one on Netflix where they talk about like in one sequence, nobody bought the cars, but then they interview one of the dealers where he talks about like that they can't get enough of the cars. So like it's either that one or that one, so, and okay, hold on. And unlike most people here, because I know like a lot of you like got into DeLorean because of the Back to the Future movies. I didn't see Back to the Future until some point in the mid-90s, because I was always traveling with the music and everything, and like this article on the left, I mean, I know it's in German, but like that's what got me into DeLoreans, because like there was this article about Ace Frehley, the guitar playing KISS, how he got arrested driving in his car. And when I saw the article, I was like, is that a prop from one of the photo shoots? Because they just had an album out like a few months before that. And I thought it was like a prop from the photo shoot, until I realized when an older friend of mine told me, no, that's actually a car that just came out like a year ago or something. So that's how I got into the DeLorean. And like I said, like the first time I saw Back to the Future was like, I think like 94, 95, when I stayed at like a new friend that I made before, and she had that movie, and I saw it. I was like, oh my god, they used the Ace car in that movie. That is real. So yeah, and that's me, because like I used to work also for the band KISS, like, and some of the guys helped me with my music and stuff, and this was just like a few weeks ago, because like now they're like on their final tour, because they're like in the early 70s, and it's getting hard to wear those outfits and shoes like this when you're like 73, 74. So, and here's something I wanted to talk about. The National Archive in London, when Barrie Wills did his book, he tried to get some of the documents from the archive, but at that point everything was still under lock. But thank God, when I applied to go there, the person that was in charge that day he had no idea what he was doing. So, oh yeah, no, yeah, sure, come in. So what do you need? And I was like, well, they have a list at that, now it's actually online, but at that point that list was not online. I was like, well, just everything that's like DeLorean related. And he was like, well, that's a few thousand documents. And I was like, okay, cool. I take that, and I was there with like a couple of my friends, and we all used the scanner app on the phone. So, and then the guy was like, yeah, but we have a limit. I cannot give you more than 6,000 pages. It was like, well, okay, that's a start. And then I told the other guys, okay, we have 4 hours before they close, because they only give you like a certain time spot. Okay, nobody drinks anything, nobody goes to the toilet. You just turn on your phone and we start to scan. And we made it. This is just like one of the tables with the documents. And we scanned like 6,000 pages in 3 hours and 52 minutes. Nobody went to the bathroom. And we didn't wear diapers either. So, and like some of the stuff that was in there was like so mind-blowing. I mean, especially, like the stuff with Marion Gibson. For example, like some of the documents that she brought to the British government. Like she arrived in the UK, I think it was like on the 14th of September. But some of those documents, or at least one or two, had the date of the 16th of September. So, I mean, I know Back to the Future, but I don't think it would have worked, And, yeah, and like all those documents, and also like there were some documents about like some of the papers disappeared, and the police couldn't find the documents anymore. And like, and also, for example, yeah, you know how it is, like if somebody does something bad, I mean, like here in the States, you have I don't want to get into political stuff because I have no idea about it, I just know about music. But like, like when like Trump or like the other one does something, or like it's a company that does something bad. So now let me ask you this. If John was the evil guy in that whole thing about like money disappearing and everything, how long you think it would have taken for the government to give those documents to the press? An hour? Well, then how is it that like some of those documents are still under lock until the year 2076? So it seems more like it was somebody on the other side of that whole involvement, from the government. Because like, why would the government put documents under lock if John was the bad guy for like almost 100 years? That doesn't make any sense. So, and then like, here's some of the stuff that's in the book, because I also tried to find as many like rare pictures and stuff that hasn't been seen before. Like there's one from the photo shoot, I think it was like Motor Trend, and that's one of the outtakes from that photo shoot.
Yeah, the wheels. Headlights.
Yeah.
Oh, the headlights. Yeah, the interior.
And then obviously from the factory. And here's also like some outtakes, like you saw different photos of those that I gave to the Netflix people. Even I have to admit, like when they contacted me about like, oh, we want to have some of the images, I should have asked them first what they're gonna put in the documentary, because like some of that stuff is so terrible, and it's just like always like, like the story itself is already like so crazy. Like why do you have to change stuff, does it really get more views like if you put some bullshit in it? But like, let's face it, like if a 20-year-old is watching that today, he doesn't know what happened back then, so it doesn't make any difference, because like the actual story is already so crazy. And then, yeah, like some other shots. And oh, by the way, I always have to point it out, like everyone see on that's one of the first press photos, and the DeLorean, the painted logo. Because I still see that all the time, like on some of the Facebook groups and stuff, when people say like, oh, how could you put that logo on your car? Like that's like you're ruining the originality of the car. But like that was the actual design from the factory. And like, where's the... and here's also something I spent like, I think like it took 1.5 years like to get all kinds of like newspaper articles, especially from the States, because like if I would have brought here like the ones from Germany and Switzerland, it wouldn't help you at all, because like and the interesting part is like when some people say like, oh, people only started to talk about the DeLorean after Back to the Future came out. That's absolute bullshit. I mean, like I have like ads like this and like little articles about like what John did and whatever. There was even like a Halloween party, and it was themed after John and his wife. It was a theme party in Hollywood, you know, where you had to dress up as them. And this happened in like 80 or 81. So, and yeah, like I said, like there was pretty much like not a month where there was not like at least like 5 or 10 different articles about the car and everything in the 70s. So, and I compared it to some other car makers, and they probably had like 20 or 30% of that kind of press. So like when people say, oh, the car only got attention after Back to the Future came out, it's not true at all. And then, of course, there's another one from the factory with that logo on, and like some other pictures, you know, from the factory. And the book has 500 pages, and I think there's like 2,000 different like mix of photos and documents and whatever. And then like one journalist actually complained about, oh, it takes so long to go through the book. Like I had it for like a couple of weeks and I'm still not halfway done. And I was like, okay, well, that's exactly the point. It's like, you know, when you go to Burger King, I know it's McDonald's that has the McRib, and the McRib all of a sudden, you want to have it like in this size or you want to have it in that size, you know? When people say size doesn't matter, it's bullshit. And also like some of the personal notes from John are in the book, because I love the stuff that he wrote on certain occasions. Like for example, like that little thing on top, there was this guy that wrote this letter about like how big of a fan he was of John, but like of stuff he would like to do. And then like John sends out this note to one of the other guys, well, we should try to hire that guy. And the smartest quote I've ever seen from John in regards to any of this is like, because like somebody asked him like if he ever want to get involved into politics, and he's like, I'm smart enough to know that I'm not smart enough to be in that thing. And then like here was one of his ideas when he played around with the idea, hey, could we buy Porsche? And that's exactly why I thought it's so important to put this in a book, because like everyone could say like, oh yeah, no, John thought about this and that, but like, A, who was really there? And if you see the actual document, I think it's much funnier. And then like there was some remarks about Germany where I just had to laugh, like, you know, like that all German bankers are crooks, which is true. And then like how arrogant like some of the car makers are in Germany. I was like, oh my God, like it was, you know, it's absolutely true. Because like when you look at like some of the, you know, the German car makers, that they still believe like they invented the wheel, you know. And then so also stuff like that. I always love details about stuff. This is like a financial report where you see like all the little details, like how much food was, like, oh, okay, you know, this is from the not so popular guy that Ron Ness's, but like, you know, how much he spent for breakfast, dinner, and whatever expenses. And they would have to staple the actual receipts on the back of that sheet, and then John would put his initials on there, so like the person who was on a business trip would get his money back. And I just always loved the little details. And here was like a class, an ad for like a job when they were looking for more people. And this is from the Quality Center, like the one in California. And notice also that, yeah, I know, like I always show it, like the one in the middle also has the painted real logo. It's like a little bit small, but like you might see it. And then here's some conversation with Carl Ludwigsen, who was like a real famous like journalist in the States. And he worked for like a lot of car companies, and John actually tried to hire him, but he was like, you know, I really like you, but I don't want to work for you. And yeah, there's more stuff like that, you know, because like some, you all know Bob Brady from
Bob.
yeah, Bob, yeah, but because we are working like on another thing, like he posted already a couple of like the trailers for that video, the missing pieces. And because that's like a lot of the other stuff, like from the British government that was in that archive. Because, for example, when they always say like, oh, we gave him 100 million, but the truth is like out of those 100 million, they told him he has to build the facility like in Dunmary, because like John had a different plan to have it like right at the docks in Belfast, so it would be much easier. Like you have the cars shipped and you just take them out and you're there. And he built and paid for that industrial park that is still there. Like there were no streets or anything, it was just like cow fields. And they said, okay, no, you built it here, but obviously you have to build the roads and everything. So like when they say like, oh, we gave him all that money, but like more than half of that money went straight back to the UK because they were like, oh no, you can't put your factory at the docks, it has to be there. So that's always like, but it somehow never got mentioned like in any of the documentaries. It was just always like, oh, we gave him that kind of money. And the same thing is like, I'm sure like a lot of you heard that stuff about like the GPD thing, that like he formed that company with Colin Chapman. The truth is, and that's also the National Archive, is like Colin Chapman formed that company in the mid-60s. Way before, like John was not even working at Pontiac at that time when Chapman formed that company, because it was his way of like moving money out of the UK. Because like I'm sure like a lot of you feel like into music, like know the stories about like how the Beatles and the Stones, how they all left the UK because like they had this crazy tax rule. Like if you make over a certain amount of money there, like your tax rate was like 90%. So Chapman, who hated paying taxes, was like, okay, let's form this company, and it was called GPD. And this is all very well documented in the National Archive. There's interviews of old Lotus employees that also talk about that like how Chapman formed that company. And it was like in the mid-60s. So when now you see it like on any of those DeLorean companies, oh yeah, John formed that company. Yeah, right. He wasn't even working at Pontiac, and he probably, I mean, he didn't know Chapman at that point, you know, in like the mid-60s. So it's kind of like interesting, like how some people change stories just to make one person look bad, because they'll figure out, well, nobody's gonna do some research about that. But like when you go to the National Archive, everything is documented there. And it's also the same, you know, when they talk about like the money, that, oh, John got money in a secret way from Lotus or the other way around. Back in the 70s, I mean, everyone that's been around at that time knows, like in the 70s, you didn't have PayPal or anything like that. There was no internet. Back at that point, and I saw some of those documents, it's like if, when you sent money from the States to the UK, well, let's put the other way, from Northern Ireland, or Ireland to the US. First, you had to go to the bank, then they have to ask like the officials from the Northern Ireland, you know, like the officials, like, you know, kind of like how like the taxing is. So then they have to approve that. Once they approve, the same thing has to be approved from the British government. Then it goes over to the States, then it's an import, not of goods, but like of money. Then it has to be, you know, also get confirmed, and it takes weeks until the money is actually moved from Ireland to the States. So when they, in later documentaries, whatever, when they said, oh, the money went over in a secret way, it's like, how secret is it if like 3 banks and 4 governments have to approve the thing? I mean, like, who else did they want to approve that? And then, yeah, like this is one of the receipts, like when some of the money was moved. And this was like, this one actually came from Switzerland, and Switzerland was even more strict. like when you put money into like a Swiss account, it's not a big deal because like they had this secrecy policy, like, you know, but like if money went out of Switzerland into a different country, also everything had to be approved, and like you couldn't send money to the States in an official way, like this one was, without having it approved. And then also some of the stuff in the book, like they had those secret shoppers that they would send to like some of the dealers, and it was all very well like documented, and I don't want to tell too much about it, but like you will crack up like when you read like the kind of answers that the dealers gave, you know, like what the car is made out and whatever. It's like they've never seen a car before. And then also like the full GPD contract is also in the book. Because I saw it like, you know, because you heard so much about that contract, and that's by itself is a joke. If John formed that company, then why would he do a contract with, you know, the other company? Like, does not make a lot of sense. So that's why I thought it's important that the contract is in the book so people can actually read through it and like, oh, okay, this is, and plus like all those documents had to be approved by the government, you know, because there were big money sums involved. So like anyone that says like, oh, you know, there was something, whatever, like the money transfers and stuff, it was all so well documented because like we all know, like I said before, there was no PayPal or anything like that. Like everything had to be sent in an official way. And then also like, this is one of the logos that John did like in the mid 70s, where like he wanted it for like some business cards, but like they never used it. And also there's like a couple of blueprints in the book and some more of like the vintage advertisements. And it's funny because like some of the dealerships, they already started to advertise the car. Oh, it will be in our showroom like very soon, like as early as like 79. And then on the other hand, you had like some dealers in like 82 that would still advertise the car but use pictures of the prototype of the first one. So, and that's also like one of the outtakes, because you saw the photo from the catalog, and that's the actual photo before, well, it was not Photoshop at that point, it was like brushes and whatever else. Oh, and there you are, there's a picture of you from some event. Do you remember that? Probably not. Because I just found that photo like, I think like 2 or 3 days ago. And then here's one of the early design ideas that they had for the windows. And there's also like a letter that explains, you know, with the date and everything, but then obviously as we all know, like they didn't use that idea. And here like some of the mock-ups, you know, like for the documents that came with the car. Because like I said, like back then there was no Photoshop, like everything had to pretty much like cut and paste, like, you know, and put it all together, like a typical catalog now that you do in Photoshop, and it takes you like 2 hours. Back then it was like the work of like about like 10 days. And here are like some pictures from the cars and dealerships. By the way, if any one of you has that poster, the one on top, if any one of you has that for sale, please contact me, because I'm still missing that one. And then here's something that like the Transporter's Handbook. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen that. They gave it out like when the cars were transported, and like it's like a 10-page book that explains the exact procedure, like so the cars wouldn't get damaged or like, you know, and it's a very interesting thing, but like somehow like barely anyone have ever seen that book. And it's like yeah, like the size of this phone. Hold on. Just checking if I have, and also like a little myth saying, like, I'm sure like all of you like saw that thing like the last couple of years about that guy that claimed he was like the son of like an affair that John had. So I saw some of the interviews that the guy did, and I was like, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I called Barrie, and I was like, and I asked him, like that woman, do you know her? Like, yes, she worked in Coventry. And I was like, but like John was never there, right? No, he was never there. So was she ever in Belfast? No. So according, because I have a couple of like the schedules, like when John was over in Ireland, he was never there. That woman was also never in Belfast. So to have sex, you have to be in the same room. Or at least in the same country, you know, so. And then I was asked to do an interview with this podcast, and I told that saying, and then I guess they wanted to hear something different, like, you know, like that would make his story more believable. And then the guy was like, you know, what you're telling us, like, doesn't really fit with our program. I'm sorry. Okay, have a nice day. Because the truth never works, like, you know, if you don't get the crazy result. And that's a funny picture from Irvine in '81, where the prototype is like covered, you know, with like all like paperwork and stuff. It was pretty much like sitting in between documents and whatever. And I saw that's such a great photo. That engine now, like Ed Ouding from Holland, like he has that engine now, the one on the right. And then here's one example, like when I did the book, I come from the music scene, and it always bothers me, like when you see books and like it's just a white page, and then there's a picture, on the next page there's text. And when I worked for KISS, like, and I was asked a couple of times, like, you know, to come up with designs, so I was like, okay, I think it's more interesting if you make a car book, but make it look like a tour program. I'm not sure if every one of you like still remembers tour programs, like when you went to concerts and they had the programs. So I was like, no, you want to fill the pages, like for example, like that's the chapter of 82, and I just used all the headlines, or like the more interesting ones of that year, and that's the first page of that chapter. So like even, it's not just a page that says next chapter. No, you have to read like at least like 10-15 minutes just to go through that page before you actually start looking at the chapter. And then, yeah, here's also a few examples, and this is like from one of the board meetings. There's like a few of them in, and like it takes a lot of time, like to go through everything. It's not a book where you say like, oh, I just read this quick over the weekend. And then here's some more pictures of like the gold DeLorean ones, and this was taken at the Peterson Museum. And this is, because we're pretty much at the ending, we played in Belfast like this year, and like we went to the factory. The blonde woman, the one that's next to me, that's Sherry Curry from The Runaways. I'm not sure if some of you remember her, because I played together with her in a band, and we thought, you know, we have to go there. And that's the most important message for today. You need a luggage rack. Thank you. And then, yeah, if anyone is interested in any of the, well, I only have one book. I have a few of them with me today, and then the other ones I have on Saturday at the Midwest facility. And also I have some cassette tapes, because like, I think most of us DeLorean owners like have a tape deck in, so when I released the book, I saw like, you know, like, actually a friend of mine said like, you know, like you should do a song for the book release, and then we're like, okay, I have to write something, and then we wrote the song called Live Your Dream, and I was like, okay, we have to release it on cassette, and we also did like a limited edition on vinyl, because I was like, when I checked when we were working on the book and everything, and I checked like the last vinyl picture disc release was in 91 or 92 by Prince. I was like, okay, if nobody has done it since then like, I guess we have to be the ones that bring it back. Okay, thank you.